Hello everybody, welcome back to the great state of Montana. This is the Carbine Cowboy. Hey, I wanted to do a quick video for you. I had a request from a viewer when I did my last video on the history of the handgun about doing one on gunfighters of the Old West. So I thought, hey, it's kind of a snowy day, so why not? Just for references, I'm using William P. Hardy's A Chronological Order of the Old West. I've had this book for quite a while. But the topic of my video today, if I'm going to talk about gunslingers, I'm going to talk about one that everybody knows and heard of. The Scourge of the Southwest, the Scourge of New Mexico. You got it. William H. Bonney, a.k.a. Billy the Kid. Hey, he's always been kind of popular, and I got to admit, I always kind of liked reading about Billy the Kid. Billy the Kid had a lot of controversy. Unlike some of the other outlaws of his day, Jesse James, the Dalton Boys, Blackjack Ketchum, Tom Horn, there was a lot of controversy surrounding Billy the Kid and his death. So I'm going to be referring to this book by Hardy. And that way, there is no quotes done by me that are wrong. So with that, I'm going to get started for you. Billy the Kid was born in 1859, and he was born in New York. I actually know that as a fact because he was baptized there. So they have baptismal records. His mother was Irish. And, they have records of that. Billy's mother ended up marrying a guy by the name of Antrim. And they ended up in Illinois. And then from Illinois, they ended up going to New Mexico, depending on what source you read. Some say they ended up in Kansas. Some say they went straight from Illinois to New Mexico. It just depends. There's a lot out there, so I'm not going to bore you with a whole lot of detail. But he ends up in New Mexico, and his mother ends up contracting tuberculosis, or in those days, as they called it, an infection of the lungs. She died at the age of 45. That would have made Billy about 14 years old. Now, Billy's stepfather didn't really have no desire to raise Billy and his brother, so he just abandoned, just left them. And then by the age of 14, Billy was an orphan. He had nobody. He started getting himself into a little trouble. The first time he got pinched for a crime was for stealing laundry out of a Chinese laundry. It was really kind of a petty offense, and they locked him up in jail for a couple of days. Billy actually escaped and thought because he escaped, he was in a lot of trouble with the law, so he hightails it. He gets out of Dodge because he thinks now he's a wanted man. And then he kind of bums around for a little while, and then he ends up kind of working his way back. And in 1877, at the age of about 15, 16, Billy kills his first man. And the man's name was Windy, not Windy as in a girl's name, Windy as in W-I-N-D-Y, Cahill. Billy was in a saloon, they were playing cards. Cahill started insulting him, calling him all sorts of derogatory names for the time. Called him a cheat, a hustler, an SOB, and they ended up getting into a scuffle. Well, Cahill managed to get Billy onto the floor, put his knees up on his shoulders, started smacking him across the face, started really whooping the tar out of him. Now you gotta remember, Billy's only about 15 at this time. Jerks a pistol out of his waistband and ends up shooting Cahill right in the stomach. And again, Billy takes off out of the saloon. There happens to be a horse tied up right there. Billy grabs the first transportation he can find. Luckily for him, that horse happened to be a racehorse, and he hightails it for the horizon. Well, you got to understand something. Back in the day, the laws were a lot different than what they are today. Cattle rustling, horse thievery, that was a hanging offense. I mean, they didn't waste any time. You got caught, they stretched your neck. That's just all there was to it. By Billy killing Cahill the way he did, he could have claimed that as self-defense. No fuss, no muss. The laws in those days were pretty clear. If you insulted a man, insulted his wife, questioned his integrity, laid hands upon him, meaning physically touched him, those were all justifiable forms of defense, up to and including deadly force. Yeah, the law was pretty clear about that. They didn't make too many decisions contradicting that. So that was pretty well all well and fine. Then Billy ends up, with John Tunstall, the Lincoln County Wars, and I'm not going to bore you with a whole lot of that between Alex McSween and the Murphy Dolan faction and John Chisholm. There was a lot that's wrote on that. Billy was a key player. And, again, this young man, John Tunstall, takes him in off the street. And Billy's still a young man. I mean, he's like 16, 17 years old. Tunstall takes him in. He's the only real father figure that Billy ever knew. Then he watches his so-called adopted father get gunned down in a hail of bullets by a deputy's posse, which everybody knew that deputy's posse was owned and controlled by the Murphy Dolan faction that was about as crooked as the day was long, otherwise known as the Santa Fe Ring. It reached all the way to the governor. Well, he witnesses that. He witnesses this man that took him in and gave him a life, get gunned down in a hail of bullets. Well, Billy kind of goes on a little bit of a rampage, If any of you have ever seen the movie Young Guns 2, there is some truth to that, but there's a lot of it that's Hollywood. So you really kind of have to be careful of taking all of it, as actual fact. I mean, did Billy the Kid actually shoot Sheriff Brady? Yes, but he wasn't the only one. There was quite a few others. But throughout all of this is where it starts to get interesting. The governor of that time, Lew Wallace, ends up convincing Billy that if he would turn state's evidence and point the finger at the people that are corrupting Lincoln County, he will grant him a full pardon for any and every crime he ever committed. Billy's like, really? Okay, so get this. Billy the Kid actually walks in and turns himself into the law. And he's kept locked up voluntarily for 27 days. He writes a couple of letters to the governor, Lew Wallace. He says, look, I've done everything you wanted me to do. I've testified in court. I've pointed the finger at all the bad guys you want. I'm waiting for my pardon. Zero response from the governor. Sounds like a typical politician. Make a promise and then renege. You kind of understand what I'm saying? But anyway. So Billy leaves. He takes off. Now, Billy, this is where it starts getting interesting. Billy is accredited with killing 9 men. Some say it's a lot more, but historical fact says at least 9 men. Some accounts say it could be as high as 25 to 30. We'll never really know. But here's the thing. The 2 men that Billy did kill, that they do know for a fact, were Deputy Bob Ollinger and Deputy William Bell when he escaped from the Lincoln County Jail. That's the one where Billy was upstairs. He tells Deputy Bell, I have to go to the outhouse. Deputy Bell escorts him down the stairs to the privy. We don't know where Billy got the gun, but Billy ends up finding a pistol. As Bell is taking him back upstairs to his cell, Billy turns around and he shoots Deputy Bell. Kills him dead. Ollinger, who was across the street at the local cantina, hears the gunshot comes running out across the street, and that's from the movie Young Guns, where Billy meets him with the double-barreled shotgun in the middle of the street and cuts Bob Ollinger in half. That was true. Billy really did do that. Those are the two people that they actually know for sure, well, there was a lot of witness accounts, that Billy killed, other than Cahill, and there was another gentleman by the name of Grant that got into a verbal discussion with Billy, and Billy shot him too. But okay, so that makes 4 guys right there that they know of for a fact. But, you know, Billy ends up getting away. And Pat Garrett is then elected as sheriff of Lincoln County. Garrett, some accounts say Billy the Kid and Garrett knew each other. I don't see how they wouldn't. They were all at the same place at the same time. And just like any other peace officer that rides a beat, they know who troublemakers are and aren't. So I'm sure on occasion in a little town of 300 people, they either knew each other or knew of each other. But anyway, on July 14th, 1881, Billy the Kid is at the residence of Pete Maxwell. And depending on whose account you want to take, Pat Garrett was in the room. Billy walks in. Pat Garrett shoots him and kills him. Jumps up, runs outside screaming, "I just killed the kid, I just killed the kid." One of Pat Garrett's deputies walks in, sees the body, and he goes, "That's not Billy the Kid." And Pat Garrett's, "Yes it is, I know him." And his deputy again reverberates, "That's not Billy the Kid." That's actual factual testimony. But what is factual is the very next day, Billy the Kid is buried. Pat Garrett has a couple of the Hispanic ranch hands dig a hole. They put Billy in the ground, buried him the next morning, because Billy was killed about 11, 12 o'clock at night, so that following morning, Pat Garrett had him buried. Now this is where I start to ask a lot of questions. Billy the Kid was a known, famous outlaw. I mean, he was as well known as Jesse James or the Earp brothers or any of the people of that time period. You've just killed the most noted outlaw in the New Mexico territory. He had a $5,000 bounty on his head, which in 1881, if you convert that money over today to 2019, that would be roughly $123,154. So just a hair over $120,000. You just killed the most notable outlaw in the New Mexico territory, and there's no death photograph, which we all know they have death photographs of Jesse James, the Dalton boys, Blackjack Ketchum, Tom Horn, you know, all the notable outlaws of those days, they had death photos of them, but not one of Billy, not one. And it took a year after Billy's supposed death by Garrett for Garrett to collect the reward money for killing him. Now my question is this: you killed a man, the most wanted man in the territory, and you have no proof that you killed him. Well, I mean, if you would convert that over to today, you know, Billy the Kid would rank right up there with Al Capone and Machine Gun Kelly and Bonnie and Clyde. I mean, they were well-known outlaws. Billy the Kid would have rated right up there with them. And everybody knows what happened to Al Capone and Machine Gun Kelly and Bonnie and Clyde. Everybody knows. They documented all of this. And, you know, what strikes me kind of funny is Pat Garrett burying him the following morning, you know, with no credible proof that he killed him. So, you know, it kind of makes you wonder, you know, how do you collect on a $5,000 bounty when you really have no proof? Now, where Billy was actually buried, his body was exhumed, and he was buried at Old Fort Sumter right next to Charlie Bowdry and Tom Florino, I think is how you pronounce his name. That's where the famous tombstone with the word pals is wrote on there. But in 1904, they had a major flood that came through there, and it actually washed the bodies away. So they really can't do any DNA proof or evidence to prove that it's Billy the Kid. You know, so it just adds a lot more, you know, questions to the story. You know, my thought about it is, you know, being a historian in a sense, and especially Western history, you know, I'll read you from Tom Hardy's book right here. July 14, 1881. Pat Garrett, trailing Billy the Kid since his escape from Lincoln County Jail, catches up with him in Fort Sumner, New Mexico territory. After Billy leaves his room late that night, Garrett sneaks into the room and waits his return. As the kid returns to the dark room, Garrett shoots him through the heart, instantly killing him. With perhaps 21 dead men to his credit, the violent life of 21-year-old William Bonney has just come to an end. That's it. That's all history writes about the death of Billy the Kid. There was no autopsy, there was no death record, there was no death photos, nothing. So, you know, I just find that a little suspicious. I mean, people can think of it what they want. But you know, I think I'm going to do a little bit more of these little historical talks. I kind of get a kick out of them, you know. These are the old manacles I used to use back in the day, the old West Lawman. Nothing like the ones I use today. These are spring-loaded. These are would have been what like Billy was shackled with. They take a key. The cuff is spring-loaded. It opens up. The wrist is put in. It's closed. The key is turned. Yeah, it takes a while. They're not like modern-day cuffs. And they're locked. They're made out of iron. And unlike the cuffs today, that can be easily manipulated or picked, and no, I'm not going to show you how to do that. These couldn't be, because every key was individually cut for a set of cuffs, which meant that, you know, these cuffs are marked number 60. The key is marked number 60. So every key was cut for its own set of cuffs. No two were the same. But anyway, I just thought I'd bring this little historical note to you, and you know, I'm curious to hear your questions in the comments below on what you think, and if you would like me to do more of these videos. I've had a lot of fun doing it. And from the great state of Montana, this is the Carbine Cowboy saying, see you next time.